okay, this is the antithesis to our American family values, is a man who loves his wife, like, a lot.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Kat,
And I'm Gabe, and
and
we're
we're
the
the
Ghouls
Ghouls
Next
Next
Door.
Door.
Talk about spooky stuff,
Yes.
which is Wednesday's favorite thing. It would be the Addamses' favorite thing is spooky
Yeah.
stuff. They're creepy and they're kooky and they're all together spooky, you know?
I see what you did there.
Just like us.
Yep.
We're also all together spooky.
Yeah,
Um
our special interest is also things that other people might not find interesting all the time if you talk about it at dinner, like that movie
yeah.
where they eat the people. That's not dinner conversation, but for like Wednesday, it might be.
We would definitely be welcome at the Addams family
Yeah.
table. And yeah, we also talk about things where we try to, highlight some of the problems in society, which Wednesday has done in the past. So it's like
Yeah.
we've got it, which is why very interestingly, this episode should have turned out a different way. I think like our feelings towards the show Wednesday would be different if they just did it differently. Anyway, we are the
Yeah.
media literacy show from a horror lens where we explore the real life historical reasonings behind our cinematic fears. And we are starting a new series after this break called The Kids Are All Right.
Yeah. And they
Yeah,
like mostly are.
yeah, we'll find out which kids are all right. I think
Uh,
the thesis will be uh kids, they're persevering, they're gonna
yeah.
get through it. I don't know if all right is the right word.
That's true. Existing is hard, and that it's meant to be
Period.
hard, kinda, but, like, it's also, like, it doesn't need to be so hard.
Yeah,
And a lot of kids are going through hard stuff, especially right now, so
yeah. And so we will be covering a variety of kids in the horror world. And although it is more of like a dark comedy series, we are going to be talking about Wednesday, the Netflix series, about the
yeah.
character we've, loved over the years, now a teenager and has her own show.
Yeah, they, like, kinda twist it to be this, like, teen drama, coming of age time that's, like, entirely focused on Wednesday instead of, like, the whole Addams family. Like, they make an appearance, but it's not they're
Hmm.
not it's not like, "Everyone hang out at the Addams family house." It's like, "Actually, we took one of them, and we put them in a whole different place, and we're gonna spend the most of the time in the whole different place."
Yeah, and we'll make new characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Addams Family House is super fun, so I hope that we do get to see it in some way in the next season. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Like maybe it comes over for like Thanksgiving or something. Um I
Yeah,
don't know.
horribly, I didn't watch the show, like, the original. I don't think
Oh,
I've really ever seen much of it. I've seen, like, I think a movie version of it, but I don't think I ever, like, really watched the show. So I'm definitely super ignorant to what it used to be. So I went in totally blind with this. I was like, "This is my first introduction into this concept." So,
oh, so interesting.
yeah.
Addams Family was definitely a thing I really loved. I've always been like a little spooky kid, and the films were, I mean, they're as old as we are, and that was the thing. Like
Yeah.
specifically, Addams Family Values. I had to rewatch the first one, and I definitely remember, but there were parts where I was like, "What?" Addams
Yeah.
Family Values, though, constantly. I was like, "Yeah, I love Joan Cusack. Watch her in anything." And
Yeah.
the rest of it, like, it was just, yeah. And I've seen, obviously I've not watched at length the 1960s TV show,
Yeah.
but I have seen,
See,
episodes of it. So
you're more you know more than me then for this, because yeah, I just watched the Netflix one. It made me wanna, like, maybe check out the other one, because it seemed fun,
yeah,
like,
we
objectively.
should watch the movies. Let's do it.
Okay.
But we were talking about Wednesday's the show, which is a little different. It's we're a little late to talk about it. It's been out. It was out last year, and it really caught me off guard. I was not gonna watch it.
Yeah, same.
I wasn't gonna watch a Tim Burton nothing.
Yeah,
But I do really love the character, and I ended up watching it just to put it on as background noise, and then I got really invested just in like the mystery of it, and I ended up watching it twice because I watched it with
yeah,
different people, and I was like, this is really fun and cute. But I am also the kind of person who really loves Riverdale. So
yeah.
if you like the CW really cheesy teen shows, you love Wednesday.
Yeah, and I felt mutually. I didn't think I was gonna like it, and I did actually. Like it snuck up on me. I was like, I'll put this on for 10 minutes, and I'll probably end up turning it off because ew, Tim Burton. And then like
Yeah.
halfway through the episode, I was like, wait, okay, this is actually really cute. I am also invested. I really love Wednesday, like the character,
Yeah.
because I just like I'll get into it, but I like related very heavily to them, and I just they validated a lot of things in my brain. Uh, but yeah, I also was like, I don't think I'm gonna like the show, and it was a surprise. So maybe
Yeah.
if you haven't seen it, you'll also feel that way if you do check it out.
Yeah, if you were hesitant, I'd say give it a shot. And it's like it really is just cute.
Yeah,
And yeah, I think it's also interesting to come without previous iterations of the characters to like plant on there because I think that partly is why I didn't that's part of the reason why I didn't like Fester. I can't stand
yeah,
Fred Armisen's Fester. I think he was so annoying. I'm so glad he was in one episode. But I mean, it's like, okay, who can compete with Christopher Lloyd? Like,
yeah,
like that's gonna be a tough competition. But also, I just happen to not really like Fred Armisen either. So it was like, oh, okay, well, do we gotta
yeah.
put this guy in here?
But if you have no
Um,
comparison, it's just like, oh, that's just the character.
what a
There's nothing to
what
feel
like
like kind
a
of worry about.
quirky
Yeah.
guy. You're a weird Uncle Fester. They have an endearing relationship.
Yeah. They're really
And it was
into
like,
encouraging their murderous tendencies. Excellent. Okay.
yeah, which they totally were, and in
Yeah.
those ways, absolutely perfect for this character.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, why don't so this will be my section will be really good for you, Kat, because I do talk about the history of the Addams family and how they came to be and grow into what eventually became Wednesday. I don't
Beautiful.
talk about the animated film. I did not watch it.
I didn't even
Uh,
know there was one.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and I believe like because I found it because I think Oscar Isaac voices Gomez, and I was
Mm,
like, "That's great! I love that we're keeping the keeping him as the character that he should be." And so now I'm like, maybe I will. I have seen her like the animation of Wednesday from
okay.
it, and she like says something really crazy, like she can read minds or something. So
Okay.
I might watch it, but I do not talk about that in my section. But I do talk about the rest of the history, the other parts of it, and I will just say at the beginning that I did really enjoy this show. Again, I watched it twice. Like I will probably
Yeah.
watch it again before to pregame the next season. I will watch the next
Yeah.
season. I get it, but um yeah, I have a lot to say.
Yeah. I'm so excited to hear it.
So Wednesday is from 2022, last year, and it is about. It follows Wednesday Adams' years as a student when she attempts to master her emerging psychic ability, thwart a killing spree, and solve the mystery that embroiled her parents. And is created by Alfred Gough and Miles Millar, and occasionally directed by Tim Burton. Um, so yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, Other cool things are happening. So I don't go too in depth about like what happens in the show because it is a mystery show and I think it is fun to unpack and discover those things as you're watching. So I don't really go into the plot. I do go into a lot of character study, so just that's kind of where I'm coming from. So for
Yeah.
anyone who's like, so it is more or less spoiler free. I wanted to really, really complain about one specific thing, but it would have been a big spoiler, and so I
Oh,
didn't.
okay. Okay.
So just so people know, it is mostly a pretty much a spoiler free, at least in my section,
Yeah.
episode, which you don't always get with the Ghouls. So go
Yeah.
watch the show.
I look forward to
Um,
talking to you about whatever the thing you were possibly going to say outside of the show.
Yes, yeah, once we stop and record, I'll be like, "Let me tell
Yeah.
you." Like, "What?" No.
Yeah.
Um, so Wednesday follows the moody character, Wednesday Addams, during her formative years as a teen sleuth. Jenna Ortega plays the angsty Addams and expands the character we've seen many times before. At least I have. Sorry, cat.
That's okay.
um, because I loved the Addams Family movies growing up, and after watching the show, I actually me and my partner watched the Addams Family movies because I really wanted to experience the horror and like charm and fun that was Debbie. If you know, you know. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Pastels. What a great film. And Ortega's Wednesday steps into her own version of the character, and we expand the lore that we had seen with the other Young Wednesdays, including her co-star Christina Ricci's murderous little Pocahontas. So she's always kind of had these specific traits, and she brings that in, but we get to spend a lot more time with her, and because of that, we need like explanations. Like she can't just
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, I like to torture my brother, and I am
Yeah.
tortured at summer camp because everyone's normal,"
Yeah.
which
You
is
get to
great.
like spend more time with them. Yeah.
Yeah, so now she has to like make sense, and she has to grow, which I think is really cool because it's like she could only make so much sense,
Yeah.
like one dimensional as she's been in the past. And because this show offered us more time to spend with the peculiar family known for their morbid fascinations and intense love for one another, we get a backstory and deeper glimpses into their peculiarities. And Wednesday Adams has been expelled from another normie school and is now, as a last resort, being sent to a school for outcasts just like her, the Nevermore Academy, which is like, I wish.
Yeah.
I wish. It's such
Yeah.
a cool school. And they do like the uh typical high school film where they're like, this is the this click. Those are the
Yeah.
Stoners, they're Gorgons. Wink. Um
Yeah.
so fun. That stuff is so cute. I'm a sucker for it. Again,
Yeah.
I've seen every episode of Riverdale. Morticia and Gomez had actually met at this academy and are a bit of a legacy. And I do think it's kind of weird. It's a little strange, and not the way that they're strange. And like, this doesn't make any sense. That they didn't start here with her, or like hopefully Pugsley is going to go here. I don't know, but nevertheless, Wednesday sees this as a new challenge to escape the norm. The norm in this case is the abnorm, and she just trying to be different always.
Yeah.
So, while at Nevermore Academy, Wednesday learns some things about herself, the town, and the people in it. And reluctantly, she finds strength in friendship, and specifically with the quirky, bright, and absolutely lovable Enid. And if you're watching it, that's watching our episode. That's who I'm dressed as.
Yes.
Enid is a femme werewolf who hasn't turned yet, and that's kind of this point of contention for her. And she constantly serves as a queer metaphor with her closeted transformation woes. Uh,
Yeah.
Even further, she's a trans metaphor. Just look at her hair. She's a trans
Yeah.
flag. She's wearing it. However, um, there's also like there's like the part where her mom is like, I'm gonna send you to this special lycanthropy conversion camp for girls like
Yeah.
you. And I
Oh
was
my
like, a
goodness.
little heavy handed. We get it. We get it.
Yeah.
She's queer. But then she's not queer. So I'm
Yeah.
like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Because is she or is she not? Like, you
I
can't
mean,
just be
maybe
like,
in season 2 we'll
that's
get
and
more,
yeah.
but yeah.
Because I'm of the mind that Wednesday didn't need to have a love triangle. She needed a werewolf girlfriend. And so I hold out hope for such a twist in season 2. And I'm just saying, like, do more than just make her love rainbows. Like, you can't just be like,
Yeah.
oh, she's like bright, colorful. We're going to send her to conversion camp. Her whole thing is like her. Like it is like is a metaphor for being closeted and in this family that doesn't get you. And then she's like after this dude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Like, or at least like she can be after the dude, but then maybe be a little more obvious of like maybe she is trans. Like,
Yeah.
or like they just didn't, they're not committing. And that's the issue, is just
Yeah.
like it's queer baiting. You're queer baiting.
Yeah.
And that's
And I
so
mean,
weird.
it's an issue throughout the entire show. They code a lot of things, but they never explicitly say it so that you have like all these people like kind of like Am I represented or am I not? I don't know. Like,
Yes.
it's tough.
Yeah, I'm gonna be talking about that. I'm about to get into that too, especially about me, because there was something that was so exciting about the potential of this show that
Yeah.
pretty much let me down a little bit. And I'm sure you feel the same way for your own thing with this character that could be so much, could have represented so much.
Yeah.
But Wednesday is a mystery show with bug-eyed monsters and a protagonist that hasn't quite figured out the world isn't against her yet. And with the previous iterations of Wednesday, her macabre fascinations and quirks were fine because she was minimal and one dimensional, like I mentioned. But with the series, Wednesday can grow a little more and become more than that one note oddity. And she investigates monster attacks in this town and unravels the complicated, though still foggy, history of the town while also finding herself, which is cute. It's a coming of age. But
Right.
let's talk about one of the biggest draws to the show, that I was excited about, was that this is a very like a on the nose, more obvious Latine representation of the Addamses.
Yeah.
Uh, because obviously they've always been kind of that, they've always been at least mixed. But having, Jenna Ortega, having Luis Guzman, totally blanking on Pugsley's name, but all Latine.
Yeah.
And I'll go into I'm gonna get really excited about it. Um, and Morticia's there. She's Irish. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'm just glad they didn't like. I'm just glad she wasn't trying to pretend to be Hispanic again. It's fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Addams family, was originally created by Charles Addams in 1938 and was an antithesis to the nuclear family. They were to represent a quirky kind of commentary on what we usually see with a nuclear family, which is really funny when you think about what are the Addams family, right? The core things that we know about them is, yeah, they like the macabre and stuff. It's also like they love each other. Like there's like a really intense love and care for one another, like especially in the movies. Like his love for his brother is like it's not the same as his love for Morticia, but it is just as strong and beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's like the fact that just like his love for Morticia, right? It's like, okay, this is the antithesis to our American family values, is a man who loves his wife like a lot.
Yeah, because
And it's
like
like
in a lot of nuclear families, the man does not love his wife. No one really likes anyone, and they're all just really sad.
so much of comedy for so long was like, I hate my wife.
Yeah.
And then that was it. And it's like no
Yeah, their
old
entire
comedians
personality was just, "I hate my wife."
old comedians trying to come back being like, oh, we can't say we hate our wives anymore. Like it's so
Darn.
so funny. But it's like that's what he was. And he also was like like he was strong and he had masculine parts to him, but he was also effeminate in ways, and like it wasn't a toxic masculinity too. And
Yeah.
like then you have Morticia, who's just like beautiful and gorgeous, but she's like reserved and like studious and also just really kind. And I think that also,
Yeah.
like, it's like, she's not gossiping or whatever what you imagine the nuclear family to be doing. And the
Yeah.
kids are the kids. But it's like
Yeah.
when you think about it, it's just like that's what we're competing, like we're commenting on, and to look at them and be like, this is what you're trying to say. What you're trying to say about us. Um,
Yeah.
but the Adams family, in the comic strips, celebrated the macabre and delighted in the bizarre, though they were never really condescending or judgmental to others, like the normal families. They simply knew what they liked and did as they pleased. And they didn't even really know that they were weird.
Yeah.
Especially in the films and stuff, people are like, "What?" And they're just like, "What do you mean?" This is a
Yeah.
normal thing to do. And like Morticia's like cutting off the tops of the roses. Like that's how she like grooves her garden. And it's like that's just how she lives, man. And she like there's no judgment there. And I think that was really cool. I think the only judgmental Adams is Wednesday. And for good reason. She was like literally just calling people out. And the family had started as comic strips in the New Yorker, which I think is really cool. I didn't know that. And I was like, that's so cool. Then there was a 1960s dark comedy sitcom, which expanded the delightful world of the otherworldly family and also made them Latine. So when they were the comic strip, they didn't have names. They were just these weird characters. And Gomez Addams didn't have a name. He was the creator, Addams, wanted to call him like Repulsy or something, like
Okay.
to be like repulsive.
Okay.
Um, but he just like was this like he's supposed to be kind of like weird looking, and he's like stout because he's not supposed to be conventionally attractive because he's
Okay.
against
I see what you're saying.
whatever. So with the show though, actor John Aston was given free reign to name the patriarchal character, and he chose Gomez. And he told the Ocala Star Banner, which fun fact is my hometown, which is so weird, that he was also free to inject the Latin lover blood in Gomez's veins, which is weird. And despite this questionable J.K. Rowling approach to character naming, the family became, at the very least, mixed race. It's really it's given Cho Chang.
Yeah.
Gomez Adams, like what is that? Like
Yeah.
whatever. But later, with the 90s film, Puerto Rican actor and phenomenal artist Raul Julia elevated the character further, solidifying the character's design completely as a loving, romantic, and very Latine father. And for me growing up, it's like I didn't have a dad growing up, and I didn't really want one. I
Yeah.
didn't really care for that. But if I had wanted a dad, it was gonna be Raul Julia's Gomez,
Yeah.
100%. I was like, that guy, like I just felt like I never really saw like a Latino dad on
Yeah.
screen except for like George Lopez. And I
Yeah.
was like, he's fine. For my sister, she loved Antonio Banderas in Spy Kids. She was
Spy
like, that's my
Kids.
dad. And he kind of looks like her dad too, so it's funny. But she was like, that's my dad. And I was like, did I ever have okay, and I was like, yeah, funny enough, it's a spooky character of Gomez. I was like, that's who I want to be my dad. So I just love that. And he's also Puerto Rican, which like that we don't get a lot of representation, so that means a
Yeah.
lot. With the Netflix series, this Latin identity is expanded past the Latin flair of Gomez and his love for Morticia, and we're given an entire backstory of their heritage. And Ortega was actually really excited to play Wednesday, explaining Wednesday is technically a Latina character, and that's never been represented. So for me, anytime that I have an opportunity to represent my community, I want that to be seen. And I love that.
Yeah.
It was like, that's so cute. Like I really do. I got very excited that they were leaning into it and that like Luis Guzman was Gomez. I know he gets a lot of, flack for not being, you know, Raul Julia, and I get like no one is, so
Yeah.
sorry. But I love him
Yeah, he
as
did a
an
good job.
actor, and I think
Yeah.
he you know what he was playing it. And I think it was delightful for him. Like I think he was having a good time, and it means a lot because he just like fits that character. Like he's
Yeah.
sweet and he's doting and he's like a good dad, and that's what Gomez is supposed to be. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
No complaints from me. But just a side note, before doing this episode, I didn't know that Ortega was actually Puerto Rican and Mexican, and that Luis Guzman is Puerto Rican. I don't know why I didn't know that, but they
Yeah.
both are, and I'm just really excited to see Filipariquas like on screen. And
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa! It was actually like they're. I think they hint at being Mexican because, of course, they're kind of talking about being indigenous, but without talking about being indigenous.
Yeah.
So, and they also say Dia de la Muerte, so Mexican, but they're Puerto Rican, and that's really fun.
Yeah.
Um, so, despite this win for representation, the Netflix series at times felt like a blind casting world. Like,
Yeah.
they were like, we're diverse, but without like the magic from Brandy's Cinderella blind casting, like that was
Yeah.
like, charming, This was like a mess because it would be like, why is that character doing that?
Yeah.
Again. And then I had so many questions with like the backstory because I'm like, but wait, wait, hold on, but who's this now? This doesn't make any sense. So
Yeah.
Just bear with me for this plot because it gets weird. Wednesday and her family's Latine heritage, though confirmed and nodded at throughout the series, does little to drive the plot, which is really sad because you had so much opportunity. Like, if you're gonna make them Mexican, like imagine what you could do, like with the monsters, with the lore, with just the backstory. Like, do some research, talk to somebody, talk to like
Yeah.
a brown person. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
lay off it when Ortega wants to like change up the script a little bit. Like,
Yeah, she made headlines for that literally, like, yesterday, and it was like, "Oh, producer mad," and called her out for, like, changing lines. It's like, "Well, maybe the lines needed to be changed."
listen, the poor girl performed while she had COVID, and that was really a problem and also rough. But
Yeah.
her wanting to change the lines, not a problem.
Yeah.
Um, it's just a terribly missed opportunity. And I was thankful actually to find in doing research for this episode, someone who agreed with me on refinery.com. And then in their article, there's a major issue with Latina representation in Wednesday. Writer Nicole Froyo explains, while it is refreshing to see a non-stereotypical Latina role, I would have loved the series to take advantage of the rich cultural landscape of Brujeria, delve into Mexican mythology and beliefs in the paranormal, and truly integrate Mexican traditions and creeds around death into the already eerie Addams family narrative. Instead, Wednesday relies on simply telling its audience that the main character is Latina and moving on. And by telling us, they just mention, she like mentions Dia de la Muerte, she says gracias once, like to her dad. Like that's like it. Like it's so weird. She's
Yeah.
like they were like, we did it. We did it. We did everything we had to do. What else do you want? You're asking for so much. But like even more so is like I just recently read this thing Between Us by Gus Moreno, and there's Mexican like spirituality and lore in that horror that
Yeah.
was so fascinating. Like it amplified it. It made it like fun and scary and interesting in a way that's like non-generic. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like you could elevate your work if you were more intentional about the characters that you're putting into it, like and thinking about where they're coming from.
Yeah, because it just enhances the character.
Yeah, or just the world. Like if you just thought
Yeah.
about it for like a few seconds, like what does it mean to have Wednesday be a Latina and like be in the spooky stuff? like oh, she could have had a bruja like relative. Like it could have been instead. Instead of giving us a bruja that would have made sense, the show offers us a tinted Goody Adams, and Goody Adams is like from the Crucible. She's
Yeah.
notoriously a white woman, but she's an Adams, so she's Gomez's ancestor. I
Yeah.
have some questions, but there would be so much more to explore and unpack by having her ancestors actually be persecuted by the white Puritan pilgrims instead of like she is persecuted for being like an outcast, but they don't explain what that means. Cause like you're like blonde and blue eyes. What is is this the crucible or you're just doing the crucible? Or
Yeah.
or is race a part of it? Because she
Yeah.
has an accent and I don't know where it came from. So I'm just trying to figure it out. Um because Wednesday has been known to, at the very least, be an ally to indigenous peoples. She has a whole tirade where she's Pocahontas in the films, Christina Ricci as her, and she like burns down everything, and she's like, "You stole the land." Like she called
Yeah.
it out, and then what are we doing? What are we doing now? Because there's like this timeline thing. Because if Goody Adams is Gomez's ancestor, right?
Yeah.
But Goody Adams connects to Wednesday to do the psychic stuff, but the psychic stuff came from
It's from
Morticia.
Morticia, yeah. Yeah.
Questions like what? And
That
it
is
would
a
have made
plot hole, oh
sense.
my god.
It would have made sense. And Morticia is not Latine. No, no. She's Italian. Okay, we're not doing this. But even still, her last name is Adams. And I get it because it's like, it's cute because that's actually the name of the character in the Crucible. I get it. It's a cute little nod to be like, oh, remember? But
Yeah.
it's like, but what house, right? Like, what are we doing? And like, then she she's also a pilgrim. Goody's a pilgrim. Like she's one of the colonizers
Yeah.
here. She's not a native. She's not an
Yeah.
indigenous person, but she's an other and an outcast. So it's like, what is happening?
Yeah.
I don't whatever. Because Wednesdays
Reasonably
are
frustrating.
you had a chance. Like you could like if you just thought about it. Like it's for a little bit. Anyway, because Wednesday's ancestor, Goody Addams, is a pilgrim and therefore also a colonizer. It's a little hard to sympathize with her plight, but even stepping away from that flaw, right? There is the issue of the colorblind casting method in the show because it's not just her; it's like everybody who's not
Yeah.
white hasn't been thought about for more than 5 seconds.
Yeah.
To pat themselves on the back and be like, look, we have a black character in here.
Yeah.
And we love representation and diverse characters here at the Ghouls. But as we have said many times, when you make a character black, brown, or any other minority, you need to consider what that means to the character now.
Yeah.
Right, like we talked about it with Sade Sellers, where she mentioned like if you take the plot of I Know You Did Last Summer and you swap it out with black kids who cover up a crime, it changes the story. Right? Their
Yeah.
motivations for wanting to cover that up is different than I'm not going to go to Harvard. Like
Yeah.
my dad's going to be mad at me because we murdered this man with our car. It's a different
Yeah.
implication, and it can elevate your storytelling. It can change the story. It can make it relatable. Like you don't have to like we don't have to make everything dark and horrible, right? But we do have to consider who these characters are because the world is going to treat them differently.
Yeah.
And in that same article from earlier that I mentioned, they say the few black characters on Wednesday play the roles of bullies and shockingly settlers. An example of this is the character of Lucas, who appears dressed as a pilgrim in episode 1. When challenged by Wednesday about this costume, Lucas reveals that he works at the Pilgrim World theme park. And she says it takes a special kind of stupid to devote an entire theme park to zealots responsible for mass genocide. But Lucas isn't dissuaded. He reveals that his father owns Pilgrim World, effectively positioning a black character as someone who profits off of celebrating colonization.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, maybe he's, making money off of other people's racism. Okay, we've seen that.
Yeah.
We've seen that. What's the director who does Medea? This is like his whole thing.
Yeah.
But like there's the problem of like that character specifically. So there's also Bianca, who's the siren and the most powerful girl in the school, and she's a bully for no good reason in the beginning, like straight up.
Yeah.
As soon as she gets there, she's like, "I hate you," and it's like, for why? Like, hello, nice to meet you. She does like put Wednesday in her place, which is really refreshing because I can't stand chosen ones.
Yeah.
But it's like, why do they always have to be the ones to do it?
Yeah.
And they talking about the fact that she's getting the prudence treatment from Sabrina, the
Yep.
Chilling Adventures. She's getting prudenced, and being sidelined for the white passing chosen one. Um, and though she does come around in the end as a friend and she sticks up for herself and she gets a little bit of a backstory, it says a
Yeah.
lot to make one of the only POCs a villain for so much of the first season.
Yeah.
Like most of it, she's a villain. I would say she like had integrity. Like at the end, she was like, "No, I'm calling this off." Like she does like have a really strong, amazing character that I hope in season 2, now that she's like not a bully, we can actually see her be a person,
Yeah.
and not a needless enemy. Anyway, but there's the issue that Froyo brought up about the mayor of this town, which is Lucas's dad, who owns Pilgrim World, because a black man runs this historically problematic town and owns the problematic theme park,
Yeah.
right? And there's a whole scene where he is threatened and ridiculed by a white woman, Morticia, later when she accuses him of not understanding the unfairness of society and being a part of the problem. And like, he can absolutely be a part of the problem, for sure. He is a man in power, like, straight up.
Yeah.
However, he is also a black mayor in a racist town that loves to hate outcasts. And this is also where I was gonna have a
Yeah.
spoiler. of what happens is a problem.
Oh,
Uh,
yes. Okay, okay. I'm connecting there because I was also like, I wanted to say it, but now you're telling me I shouldn't say it. So good. Excellent.
right, excellent. So other stuff happens to him that's also a problem.
Yes.
Right. And it's the problem is like we missed some conversations here, like some conversation points of like him being like, listen, like I totally get it. You were not heard. Your like your complaints are valid, Morticia. Like as a woman, you were not given respect. I didn't
Yeah.
do that, but also I get it. But also you need to come with a little more respect than that because they're like something is happening. Like, how did he get here? What does he have to go through every day to be here?
Yeah.
There's
And
also this
like
whole
he understands the unfairness of society.
yes, yeah,
Yeah. And he
not
doesn't
being
need a white woman to lecture him about that.
exactly. It's like it was weird. It's a little weird. It's a little tone deaf. There's also like someone had this whole comment where there was like there's two scenes where there's rain and there are everyone has umbrellas except for specific characters. And in the first like episode, it's the black sheriff woman. She does not have an umbrella. She's got her regular hair out there that they probably like no one on staff could probably style for her, and she's just getting wet, like drenched.
Yeah.
Like weird. It was weird. It was given a little like Twin Peaks
Okay.
and then later, there's another scene where there's like besides that sheriff lady, there are 5 other black characters, and 2 of them are in the rain, while everyone else has an umbrella. So
Yeah.
like, what is that?
You're like,
Like
why
that's
was that the choice? Yeah.
that's just weird, right? And Freyo ties it up nicely here, explaining that at the end of the show, the tally is clear. White characters are the victims of colonization, referencing Goody Addams.
Yeah.
Being like, I'm a victim too. Black people are bullies, and the settlers and indigenous people simply do not exist beyond rhetorical tools for white victimhood. And I was like, snaps.
Oof.
I
Yeah.
was like, oh my god. There's also the side note that I was talking to Kat about before we started was that there's the character Yoko, and as I don't remember any other Asian characters, but I know she is, and she don't say nothing. Like that's a part of it is like she doesn't speak because I think she's one of the sirens. But it's like that's another trope
And that's a
of that they
problem. Yeah.
silence the Asian. Like at least they didn't put a color strip in her hair, like and make her like edgy, afterwards. But she legitimately like the only line I can remember from her, she didn't say. Enid said when she was gonna move in with Yoko after she got into a fight with Wednesday. She says like Enid said all this stuff, or
Oh my
Yoko said
god,
all
so
this
she, like,
stuff to me.
speaks for her,
Yeah,
and then she was actually getting lines.
like I
Okay.
was like that's all I could think. And please, listeners, if you remember a time when Yoko said words, send them to me. I do want to see that. But if it happened, it was few and far between, and the only one I remember is when she didn't even say them. So I don't like it's problems.
Yeah,
All that being said, okay, in summation, it was a fun show, and at
yeah,
times you even I know that Kat is going to discuss some of the other problems we have with the character of Wednesday, some of the other representation issues because it like started a lot, and then it would be like it would drop it, and it'd be like we
yeah,
did enough, we get star, we get smiley face sticker for go for do,
yeah.
and you're like
They're like,
what.
"We know, who's, directing sometimes, we know, but we're gonna just it's not bad though, because we have black people in the show." It's not racist. We can't the show isn't right like, you know what I mean? Like, it's fine. We did
Is
it,
the
go
main
for it.
character, he's cured of racism now.
Yeah,
Because, and I mean, yeah, and it is a win, okay? And I
yeah.
did feel
It did good stuff
a
too.
win having Ortega be Wednesday and
Yeah,
making the family more concrete Latine. I think that's really what drove me to it, and I really, really did appreciate that.
yeah.
And it's just like that shouldn't be like enough. We shouldn't just have to settle
Well,
for
yeah,
the scraps, right? And but I do want it to be known that I did enjoy the show. I didn't like Fred Armisen but I don't like him anyway. So that's neither here nor there. But I had fun trying to solve the mystery, and despite my intense dislike for Chosen One character specifically, I did like Wednesday. She actually
Yeah.
grew on me, which is a big surprise. I That's another reason. Like the first episode, I was like, I can't stand you until until she was put in her place, and I was like, okay, I feel a
Yeah.
little better now. I feel a little better that you don't get to win. Um, I love that. But I love that the Addamses got to embrace their Latine mixed identities, and I am excited for the next season and to see how the other characters can step into the light a little and maybe get some definition, and maybe we can clear up some of these really confusing plot holes about like what are we doing.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Good 2 cents. I really enjoyed them. I'd pick them up if I saw them on the street, you know?
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, the show did lots of things that were cool and lots of things that I dropped the ball on. So I'll get into specifically with Wednesday where that kind of happened. Where my section is not fact section. We shouldn't call it that. It's not. uh,
Just cat section.
yeah, it's just I'm
Cats
gonna
and
say
games
words
section.
now. So we were off for a month, a little rusty. We'll get back
Oof,
into the
yeah.
facts, come back to us. But yeah, I'm gonna be talking about Wednesday specifically and unpacking like their character. And that like the fun thing about them is that and it's also like a flaw with them is it like they're like kind of slated to represent a bunch of different things and then as Gabe said they drop the ball on a lot of those things. But like what is fun about the character and characters like them is that they're like not real people so you can put a lot onto these like hypothetical characters
Mhm,
and ways that you relate to them and you can analyze them as a viewer but that those things like because they aren't real all interpretations have the potential to be correct in
mhm.
that way. So there's a lot of debate around the character of Wednesday, specifically on like if they're neurospicy or not. Um, and that's the main thing I'm going to talk about in my section. So what's cool about Wednesday is that like a lot of people related to her, and I did also. And there's a lot of different things you could take away from like witnessing their character. And essentially, I'm just going to offer up some perspectives that I found on the internet as well as my own. And in unpacking Wednesday as a character, the disclaimer is we can't diagnose this character with any specific thing as they aren't real. Like Jenna Ortega is real, but like the character of Wednesday
Yeah.
is not real. And we can not diagnose her with anything, but we can at least agree that Wednesday is interesting and relatable as a character, and I'll get a little bit into why. So the show has been very popular. Both because Jenna Ortega does an amazing job bringing new energy to this role, and because the framing of the show took an entirely new direction in terms of this like coming of age teen drama time, mystery murder fun.
Yeah.
And the plot sets us up with relatable characters, a group of outcasts that have finally found a place they belong. And it provides us with an alternative school setting that doesn't drain them of their individuality or demonize them for their differences and instead encourages their unique skills and interests. So, a show like Wednesday is kind of a response to a societal desire to belong and feel acceptance in a world that, like, often does not provide any that kind of comfort.
Mhm,
It shows us like an imperfect version of this, but an interesting setting that gives these characters the opportunity to grow and hopefully we get a season 2 where they a lot of characters that didn't get shine get some growth and a lot more. But I kind of saw the show as like a reflection that many people do not feel supported in our society, especially in our schooling system. And if Wednesday is representing a neurodivergent character, that is something fairly common in the neurodivergent space is that you do switch schools a lot. Lots of schools
mhm.
do not work for neurodivergent brains. So Wednesday having to switch schools as many times as Wednesday has makes sense if they are in fact neurodivergent.
Mhm.
But we got to get this reflection of that society does not support people as a blanket
Period.
statement. End it
Period.
there, and that like this school is put here, and we relate to the characters at the school specifically because that's a need. We need a place that has a community that cares for people and like is inclusive and provides that kind of safe space for people to grow and doesn't like punch them down until they like go work at a factory and die.
Mhm.
Um, so there are lots of characters outside of Wednesday too that, as Gabe and I kind of talked about, like we want to see them shine. So hopefully we get that. It's confirmed for a season 2, but like hopefully
Yeah.
they like actually expand upon a lot of the work, the flaws that
Mhm.
existed, and as you said, close up those plot holes. And I'll be honest that like there are parts of the show that I really loved, and other parts that I really didn't enjoy. But I think the more I think about it, I think that's more an issue with like the writing and like
Mhm.
the direction, and had like little to do with the characters and the actors themselves. It was a lot of like they just weren't intentional about things, and that was really frustrating. And they also don't explicitly state things that
Yeah.
kind of do need to be explicitly stated if you're going to code a character a certain way, because
Mhm.
otherwise you're like positioning a lackluster piece of representation. Like you're like putting it like this could be you, but we're not going to say because then we can't
Yeah.
be accountable.
Just
S-
commit.
Yeah, it was just rude because it's like they're basically removing any like accountability that they would otherwise have, which I get why they did that because they want to like protect themselves, but
Yeah,
like then
playing
you're
it
also
safe.
like you're like still being disrespectful to the actual communities that exist within that space. Um, but the thing that I really loved about the show the most was the relationships between Wednesday and the other characters, not at the beginning where she's kind of the worst.
Mhm.
And then she's very entitled and like definitely has like rich kid energy where like, I'm better than you. And that sucked. But like
Yeah.
her
She
relationship
so
with
does.
Enid specifically, and like her relationship with the boy with the bees that I'm blanking on his name right now, and like the little pieces that she really did bond with other people. That is what I really enjoyed about the show, because her way of communicating and existing is something I just really related to. But there's also a whole commentary on the issue with Wednesday representing like just one specific community in the neurodivergent space. Specifically, there's a lot of debate around the character and if it's okay that they represent the autistic community specifically, and if that's positive or harmful. So
Mhm.
specifically, the way her character is viewed as like this quirky, fun, eccentric time.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of people are calling out the fact that like a lot of people will find autism on in media interesting as a concept but not in actuality, like in their
Yeah.
real lives they're not nice to autistic people.
It's like that
So
boyfriend who's like, "Oh, I totally understand and love, like, your diagnosis," and then when you start, like, displaying it, it's
being
like, "Oh, you're being crazy."
yeah,
It's
no,
like
100%. They're like, I want the fun quirky parts of it but none of like the bad parts.
yeah.
And we do get that with Wednesday. We're like, she doesn't really break down at any point or like show vulnerability,
Mhm.
in a way that would make her maybe not likable to an audience, because that's like what being a person is. Like they don't really show that side of her, and like that's where I was a little disappointed in it too. And now Wednesday is not a real person, but the character does exhibit many traits found in neurodiversity. Um, and the issue is that like neurodivergent people are real and
Yeah.
they're not being represented properly. So many people have opened up about not being treated with the care or kindness by the same people who like claim to love Wednesday on social media in the
Mhm.
real world. So a big problem that came up was that the people who enjoyed Wednesday did not transfer that positive feeling to people who actually exhibit similar traits. So as Gabe said, they really like it in theory, but not in practice. So, in an article on The Sun titled Here We Woe, I'm Neurodivergent, and Here's My Issue with Netflix's Wednesday by Lara Carrera Moeller, they go through some of the positives and negatives of the popularity of Wednesday as a character. So, they say TikTok users quickly made and jumped on a new trend, replicating her dance from the fourth episode on the Netflix series. Among them, people who were recognized as bullies of the same type of individuals who heavily identified with Wednesday during their childhood or adolescence.
Mhm.
So they kind of enjoyed like the commodification and trendiness of the quirks of Wednesday, but bullied the same people who kind of did the same stuff. So this led
Mhm.
to an uproar coming from former outcasts who had survived the teasing and bullying that may have been endured for like being neurodivergent. And as TikTok user Goblin Lawless put in one of their posts, I'm reminded that I'm like more as a concept from afar than as a real person. And another TikToker, Reggie1423, also added that Wednesday Addams trend, but you're autistic and you had to manually blink or work on facial expressions as a kid not to freak people out. Like you get like
Yeah.
you like the fun dance, 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 but
Mhm.
you don't like actual people who
Yeah.
have this
Or that
actual
kid
real thing.
who, like, went to the dance and did a weird dance like that. Like, I know
Yeah.
those kids. I dance with them.
Yeah.
Like, but I know a lot of people didn't. And yeah, so I totally get that.
The amount of middle school dances that I cried in the bathroom can make a
Yeah.
list. Because I danced weird. I had to, like, have my friends teach me
Yeah.
in a field. They were like, "This is how you move your hips." Like, that's a real thing that happened.
Yes.
I digress. The biggest problem I found to be consistent across the internet, that while it's great that so many people relate to Wednesday, if Wednesday existed in the real world, they would not be enjoyed on such a large scale. And the people who actually do have neurodivergency do not receive the same kindness or like I don't know, even like respect that like a
Mhm. Or
version
patience
of
too.
yeah, like they just don't get that. And like to have all these people who actually do in real life bully people with those things act like it's the best thing, coolest thing ever. Let me like benefit off of that character when you like cause harm to the same people that you're benefiting from. Like it's just like really rude
Mhm.
ultimately. So they would not be a TikTok trend. They would be bullied and ridiculed for the same quirks that have been celebrated on social media. And another issue that was discussed on the interwebs in the is the complicated impact of Wednesday being coded as autistic but not explicitly stated as being such. Lots of people within the Reddit thread that Gabe found for me had conflicting viewpoints on audiences diagnosing Wednesday and saw it as another instance of media taking complex psychological or neurological concepts and watering them down. The original poster of the thread felt strongly that they did not want people to perpetuate the idea that Wednesday was autistic because they found it harmful. And there are ways that I can understand and even agree with that take, and that there are aspects of Wednesday that if accepted as the poster child of what it means to be autistic, could cause harm, both because autism exists on a spectrum and no autistic person is the exact same, and therefore no one can be a poster child for what autism is.
Mhm.
Um, because there's so many different varieties of what it means to be autistic that exists that Wednesday as a character written like that way is a problem. And then also Wednesday having traits of like murderous intent as well as like receiving enjoyment from other people's pain
Mhm.
and then also being like stated to be autistic on the internet is like that's a problem.
Yeah.
Having that associated with autism, a neurological disorder that is already highly stigmatized, misunderstood, and even feared, is harmful. Uh,
Mhm.
Especially because murderous feelings and enjoyment of the pain of others are definitely not traits of autism, and they do not exist on the diagnostic criteria. So, seeing Wednesday as a blanket representation of autism could lead people to have even more misconceptions around what autism means than they already do. So in that way, I totally see where they're coming from. Lots of people within the thread also saw no problem with the association, but like any community, there are differing views throughout, and not everyone's going to think the same thing. So my biggest takeaway from that was I think the most important thing is that while a character like Wednesday does exhibit some traits of autism, you know, like the flat facial affect, a monotone way of speaking, a fierce sense of justice, dislike of touching, misunderstanding of social conventions and social cues, that doesn't mean they have that diagnosis unless it's like explicitly stated by the creators. Uh, and as I said, they're not a real person, so you know,
And that's probably why the creators aren't explicitly saying that too,
yeah,
because then they can't technically be held responsible for the way that she's being represented.
exactly. And that's my theory too. I think like the reason that they aren't stating it is a part of the problem, and also is like a way for them to protect themselves and not be accountable. So but as we said, Wednesday isn't a real person, and the creators have not stated what their actual intention was. So essentially, if you can't substantiate the claims, prove they're factual or confirmed, don't make them. You can relate to them all you want, but don't like go on the internet and tell everyone this is
That they're
autism
wrong. Yeah.
and point to her. Essentially, think whatever you want to think, but like recognize that like not everyone's going to agree. Um, with that being said, as a neurospicy human myself, I found Wednesday unbelievably validating and I related to them a lot, both in her interactions with others and how other characters like interpreted her actions. That's like what really got me. I have acted very similarly to Wednesday many times throughout my life, especially when I felt cornered, hurt, or overwhelmed by the unspoken expectations and social conventions of others. The fight with Enid,
Mhm.
I had to turn it off for a minute because I was like, "Oh my god, I've
Yeah.
had this exact I've had this exact conversation with someone," and it like hit me so much. I was like, the emotions are just like so palpable. I was like, I need to pause because
Mhm.
like I have lived this exact interaction where she's like just standing there and she's like, I don't understand what happened.
Yeah, like, why is this but there
Why are
I
they mad at me? I don't understand how we got here. Like it wasn't intentional. I didn't mean for this to happen and now they're mad and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But
There's
it
also
doesn't
the
yeah,
scene
sorry.
with, like, the boy when he, like, tells her that she's, like, horrible. It's, like, a really terrible thing if when she's been coded so severely as, like, autistic or just, being neurospicy, and then have him be like, "You were awful," was
Yeah.
so horrible, and then he never really like, he's like, "Oh, sorry I said that," but it's never really, like, acknowledged, like, "Oh, we just don't get you." Right? Like, no one's ever like,
Yeah.
It's you're not wrong, you're just different." No one
Yeah.
acknowledges that.
Yeah, they just like kind of get another thing that happens in the show. This is why I felt like so seen by Winston, because like people just come back and then no one talks about the fight.
Uh-huh.
And I was just like, you need to say why you were mad. You know what I mean? Like there needs to be
Yeah.
a conversation because I'm gonna do it again if you don't tell me what I did
Yeah.
wrong. You know what I mean? As the whole time. So in that way, the show was like so validating to watch because like Wednesday, there's been so many interactions where like people make really big assumptions about like my intentions behind things and then like they're not correct and then I'm like I must fix because I do care a lot and I do love this person and I must make this okay. And I just like related to that so much. And I think I was a little bit projecting onto her. Like she's a character, she's not a person in the show, but I was like, this is me.
Mhm.
So it's okay. It's okay. So I have a lot of the things that Wednesday does have also in like her mannerisms. I've like learned to deprogram that, but like as a default, like I do have the flat affect. I do have the monotone way of speaking. I have a lot of interests that a lot of people don't find interesting other than me. Um,
Yeah.
I do have a radical and sometimes unethical sense of justice. I am often blinded by the pursuit of knowledge and forget the feelings of others. And I also usually misunderstand other people's intentions in the same way that like people misunderstood Wednesdays. Like I also do that where I like think someone's doing something to be mean, and then I'm like, oh no, they meant it totally different. And then you're like, oh, social's hard. And there's like a long list of reasons why I love Wednesday and resonated with her. But many of these things were things that, the things that I got along with, as a lot of other people saw, were things that like people used against me. And they use against Wednesday in the show sometimes. And it was like things that reasons I was bullied, you know, long list. So it's honestly like just really validating to see a character like Wednesday even if they're not explicitly stated, because I related so heavily to, like, a lot of the way that they existed in the world, uh, without, the enjoying torture or murder parts. I didn't do that. But the other things, yes. So seeing a character like Wednesday make friends and find belonging was, like, kinda cathartic for me because it was a hopeful take on, like, what it is to be an outsider. Like, the fact that, like, she did still have people in her life that cared about her and, like, loved her. Sometimes they did a bad job of, explaining the stuff, but, like, they did care about her, and she did a bad job too, honestly, a lot of times. She wasn't the best friend, like, 10 out of 10.
Mm-mm.
She had a lot of work that she needed to do, and I think by the end, she did definitely grow in terms of care. You could tell, like, she did try a little harder towards the end, and hopefully in season 2, we do get a little bit more growth from her as well as a lot of the other characters that didn't get shine. Uh but my long rant essentially is to say, from a point of relation, the enjoyment of Wednesday is definitely something to be celebrated. Uh, If it made you feel seen, that's amazing because that's what media should do. And in that way, I think the show was powerful for a lot of people who are neurodivergent to like see themselves in media. Even in Enid, there's like lots of neurodivergent traits that Enid had, and seeing that represented was like really powerful too, I think. I hope that in the future, maybe they explicitly state what the characters represent so that they can actually like be more
Own
intentional
it.
and like, yeah, own it, fix it a little bit. um, and also just, yeah, like not make them the idea of people. Like, I get their characters, but like, give them a little bit more complexity and growth, and like also just like let them be authentically who they are. But yeah, so if it made you feel like you had like positive stuff, that's dope. I thought the show was really fun. I did really like it. Like, will say the disclaimer, like the game did, like I did like the show. I'm not saying I didn't like the show. It did have some flaws and things that it definitely needed to work on. And hopefully in season 2 they do. But if not,
Yeah.
then that will be sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for the like her murderous intent is like is did they put her whole like because people have argued that the piranha scene at the beginning is the most Wednesday thing she's done. Like a lot of people say she's not like any other Wednesday that there's been, because she's actually less murdery than Wednesday usually is. So it's
Yeah.
like, did they see Wednesday's murderous intent from the previous stuff and think, oh, it's because she's neurospicy, and then lean into it? That's a problem.
Oh,
If
yeah.
they were like, if they were like, okay, we have to make her like Wednesday, so we give her these weird things, but then also we're trying to make this whole new character. They just completely didn't understand
What they
what
were
that meant
doing.
by
Yeah.
conjoining those. So that's what it really is like not knowing what their intent was, or not understanding where they were coming from. And so yeah, yeah, because yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen like hate from people who are like, she's like a subdued Wednesday, she's not like the Wednesday I know. And I'm like, yeah, but because she had to be on screen for more than like 5 minutes
Yeah, and
at
they
a
had to
time,
like, give
make a whole
her things
story.
to like for people to relate to, and also like being a murderer is not good. So like you can't just have her be murdering people the whole time. And like I get it, like you as a show also exists, but you're not supposed to like Joe.
Yeah, yeah,
Like you're supposed to like Wednesday. You have to sit with her
yeah,
the entire experience, an entire season. So like you can't just make her a murder hobo. In
yeah,
my
yeah.
opinion. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess you could, but like I don't think that would have been
It would have been weird. It would
the
have been hard to
same.
relate to, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, because it was like quirky, but it was so small in the other parts. Like what you liked was her like sense of justice in the show, in the films, or like I mean that's what I liked about it in the
Yeah.
films. And that was translated, I think, well enough.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not saying she should have put piranhas in the pool, but they were hurting her brother. So, like, if she does have a fierce sense of justice, it is unethical. But they didn't
She had to
die.
stop him somehow, you know.
Yeah. It was the after where she was like, I wish they died. That was the problem.
Yeah, yeah,
And she shouldn't have done that. But like,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I do, and I loved Enid. I thought she was really cute. And I definitely saw parts of myself in Enid and in Wednesday, and just like I can be very bright and colorful. I love colors. But
Yeah.
it actually took me a long time to admit that. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't cool. I wasn't like I didn't want to be a girly girl. Because gender norms suck, and I didn't want to I didn't want to do it. So I had to be the exact opposite without understanding that like you could just be and I could like
Yeah.
colors, I could be bright. I would have loved to have a friend like Enid who showed me that I could do that, and I could appreciate that, and be more comfortable with who I am in whatever state I was. And she's also like struggling. She's going through so much, and um is in need of a friend as much as Wednesday is. And I think that is really sweet. And I just hope that it like expands. Like if they don't become girlfriends, I get it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
like, okay, at least with Enid you could do something like that. That's absurd. Like you can't just queer bait with Enid for forever. Like
Yeah.
you can't put the trans flags in her hair and give her the friggin' conversion camp therapy and not do
Explore that
something with it.
more.
Like, that's
Yeah.
so weird. That's
Yeah.
weird. It's like Taylor Swift's song where she was, like, hinting that she's a lesbian, but then she's not at all, and she's like it's like, "What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?"
Well, yeah, the entire problem is that he just didn't commit to anything.
Yeah.
They're just like, "We're doing it, but we're not. We're gonna hire people of diverse backgrounds, but we're not gonna let them actually be that. We're gonna do this, that, and the other thing. We're not gonna actually do it though, you know?
Yeah. But look at us. Look at us be
We got a
cool.
nice C minus of a try."
Yeah.
Or I guess like whatever just passing is, like that they made the show and lots of parts were really fun and it's a good show, go watch it. But like it has flaws.
But all that to say that we did like the show. We do like the
Yeah.
show. It is a show for kids and for young at heart folks who enjoy a good murder mystery. I am very excited for what they have for next season. Um, it's just like, and I also did feel seen. I also did really love and feel a connection to the fact that she finally got to be Latine, and that meant a lot to me. And it was nice to
Yeah.
unpack some of the excitement I had from a child and seeing Raul Julia and being like, "Whoa, that's what a dad can be," like, because I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know what dads can be, and I was like, if they're like that, that's cool.
Yeah, I
I'll
love
take
that
one of those.
guy.
That guy's cool. I'm gonna take one of those. um
Yeah.
so I think that's really, like, that's just cool to be able to re-explore that, and now there's like a whole new generation of young people who can fall in love with the Addams family in this new way. It's like cool that's been here since like 38, like that's
Yeah.
crazy.
I
It's
like
about to be
modernize it
100
too.
years.
Yeah.
This is coming up on 100 years of them existing. That's cool. So,
Yeah. That's crazy
um,
too. That's just crazy. It's
it's
straight up bonkers
it's
even.
2023,
Uh
like,
and like how much it's grown. But still with room to grow, but like, look at it do. So that's kind of cool.
yeah. I do, and also just like as a side note, I think it's really funny because, uh, my instinct was to dress up as Wednesday just because, like, I love the aesthetic, and she's was Latine, and then Cat dressed up and it was perfect. Then I was like, idiot, I'm Enid.
Our friendship persona is 1000% you are Eden, I am Wednesday.
Yeah, like that's what we are cosplaying them every day of our lives.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Of course, dum
Yeah.
dum.
It's
Like,
very
any
funny.
episode you get of us is like Cat being like, the world is on fire, and then we should contribute to it burning. And then I'm like,
Yes.
but what about the love stuff? What about color? Think about that. Like, actually rethink about it.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god.
It's
So
fun.
I love it. Always identified as the weird, quirky sidekick with who wears way too many patterns. So,
You're the
dude,
protagonist, Gabe.
oh no. But stay tuned for the rest of this series of the kids are all right. We'll find out if that's true.
Yeah.
We're gonna be talking about some really interesting kid stuff. Mostly horror related, one that's horror adjacent. It has some horrifying things that happen, but people are going to argue with us that happens sometimes. But two explicitly horror things. And I'm excited to, explore what it means to be a kid and to understand the world.
Yeah.
And and then we'll see, what happens as the time comes. But thank you for waiting for us as we took our little break. It was much needed. And don't get married.
Well, eat your kids.
Bye.
Bye.